Brandon Staley. Finally, we can all say that he is fired. Wow, what a time to be alive if you are a Brandon Staley hater. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Brandon Staley getting fired by the Chargers as they are coming off of a 42-point loss to the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. Brandon Staley's defense allowed the Raiders to score 63 points in one game, which is just outlandish to even hear about. Not only that, but it seemed as if the players gave up on Brandon Staley in front of a national audience. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. How excited were you to see Brandon Staley get fired by the Chargers? On a scale of 1 to 10, I obviously have to say it's at a 10. In fact, if you can put it 100 out of 10, that's the answer that I'm going to pick. I am very hyped up to see Brandon Staley get fired by the Los Angeles Chargers. This man was a travesty to the franchise of the Chargers. This man was a travesty to the career of Justin Herbert. This man was a travesty to the defense of the Los Angeles Chargers. And you look at all that talent that the Chargers had for the last 3 years, and for them to only go 500 the last 3 years, that's on the head coach for underachieving. Brandon Staley had all that talent that he was working with, and he still couldn't even win a division title with this roster. He couldn't even win a playoff game with this roster, and now he can't even get an average season with the Los Angeles Chargers anymore. You're talking about a defense that has Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Eric Kendricks, Kenneth Murray, Asante Samuel Jr. You want to talk about all those weapons on defense, and he's supposedly a defensive mastermind, and he's gotten nothing out of that core. The Los Angeles Chargers are one of the worst defenses in all of football, and it's really perplexing as to why that is the case, because you look at all the talent that the Chargers have, they should be at least top half in the league. Honestly, with all the money that they're spending on defense, they need to be top 10 defensively, considering the fact that they are spending more money on defense more than any other team in the National Football League. And that leads me to my next point about the general manager, Tom Telesco. He finally gets fired by the Los Angeles Chargers, and I have to say it's about damn time that he gets fired too. How do you be a general manager for 10 years in the National Football League and you don't even have one division title to your name? You've been there since the 2013 NFL season, and all you have to show for it is 3 playoff appearances. That's it. 3 playoff appearances in 10 years as the general manager of the Los Angeles Chargers. That is horrible, particularly considering all the talent that you assembled, which I give you credit for assembling the roster that you have. But other than that, what have you done? You haven't been able to do anything on the field whatsoever, and you've been horrible at picking head coaches every time there's a coaching cycle going on for you. Because first up, you pick off Mike McCoy as the head coach of the Chargers. They were in San Diego at that time. That was a horrible hire. Then you move on from him after 4 seasons. You go ahead and hire Anthony Lynn. That doesn't work out too well. He ends up underachieving on the Chargers. He ends up firing him even though he went 7-9 with a rookie quarterback. Then you go ahead and hire Brandon Staley. And if you guys have noticed a common denominator between each of those 3 coaches, you wonder, why did Tom Telesco focus on each of those guys? Because the truth of the matter is, all of those coaches were inexperienced and cheap. Now, I will give the general manager Tom Telesco a pass though, because of the fact that the Spaniels have a very tight budget when it comes to spending money on coaches, because we all know that the Chargers ownership is really poor, and it was never really an attractive job to begin with, at least early on in the Tom Telesco era. But that's no longer an excuse now, because now they're in Los Angeles. Now they have a bona fide superstar quarterback in Justin Herbert, and that was crazy that people were even blaming him for the struggles of the Los Angeles Chargers this season. If it was not for Justin Herbert, the Los Angeles Chargers would be the worst team in the National Football League. That's right, they would be even worse than my Carolina Panthers. That's how awful the Los Angeles Chargers have been performing all year long. It's not even like the Chargers don't have talent on the offensive side of the ball either. You look at how they have Justin Herbert, a superstar quarterback. They got Austin Eckler, a top-tier running back. They got Keenan Allen, a top-tier wide receiver. And even though Mike Williams is injured now, he was there for most of the Justin Herbert era. So it's not like he hasn't been available. And Mike Williams has been a really good player in the National Football League. And they got Gerald Everett, a pretty solid tight end. And you look at all those weapons that the Los Angeles Chargers had, and for them to underachieve year in and year out, I'm glad that they are cleaning house. I'm even surprised that they were able to figure out that Justin Herbert was going to be a superstar in the National Football League. But I will give them credit for that. At least they were able to find that quarterback. The problem is they weren't able to put it all together on the field, and they got a bunch of talented players, but they don't have the players that gel together really well, because they got a formidable pass rush. They got the linebackers, they got the secondary, they got the quarterback, they got the running back, they got the wide receivers. Offensive line is solid. The tight end is really good as well. There were some people that picked the Los Angeles Chargers to go to the Super Bowl this season. Even though I didn't believe that would happen, it's not like I would have been surprised if that happened, but the Los Angeles Chargers, they've gotten nothing done. They're 5-9 this year. They've been horrible, allowing 63 points to the Raiders, who are on an interim coach. They already waved the white flag on the season. They couldn't even score a point against the Minnesota Vikings earlier in the week. Now they score 63 points on your defense, and Brandon Staley is supposedly a defensive guru. His expertise is supposed to be on the defensive side of the field, but he has not been able to get anything done defensively for the Los Angeles Chargers. If not for Justin Herbert, this dude would have already been fired by the end of year one. Remember the stupidity that the guy did on 4th downs repeatedly, going for it in his own territory, going for it on 4th and 2 at his own 18-yard line in a Week 18 game, calling timeout in overtime when all you need was a tie and you would make the playoffs, and instead the guy's unaware of the situation. He calls timeout 40 seconds, and then the Raiders realize, oh, we can go ahead and win the game. Let's just hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs, get an extra 10 yards, and then we're going to go ahead and kick the game-winning field goal in overtime, and let's kick out the Chargers out of the playoffs since they want to play for the win, because the Raiders initially were playing for the tie, and all the Chargers needed was a tie to get into the playoffs, and Brandon Staley screwed that up because he wasn't aware of that situation, because he wanted to play for the win, even though those chances of the Chargers winning were not going to be very high to begin with. So the Raiders said, you know what, screw that, screw getting both of them to the playoffs. We're going to kick the Chargers out of the playoffs. So obviously you got to remember Brandon Staley screwed up in that regard. I mean, you look at what happened in year 2 of the Brandon Staley era, because the Chargers were 10-6. They already clinched a playoff spot. They were playing a meaningless game, and what happens? Mike Williams gets injured. That's what happens. And obviously that was a scary injury. He ends up having to miss that playoff game. And man, the Chargers could have used a wide receiver too in the playoffs, because they blew a 27-0 lead. If Mike Williams was out there playing wide receiver, maybe that blown lead doesn't happen, because you look at all the injured players on the Chargers in that playoff game. The fact that they were up 27-0 in that playoff game, they were pretty lucky to even be up by that many points early on. But the fact of the matter was they were up by that much, and Brandon Staley found a way to blow that game because of his poor coaching, and he didn't know what he was doing on the football field whatsoever, and he couldn't keep his defense composed when it mattered most. Brandon Staley got out-coached by Doug Peterson big time, and Brandon Staley made a lot of mistakes in that game. He should have been fired after that playoff game, but no, let's not fire him. Let's fire the offensive coordinator. Never mind the fact that the offensive coordinator was actually doing a pretty solid job on the Los Angeles Chargers. So they go ahead and hire Kellen Moore, supposedly a rock star offensive coordinator, but it turns out Kellen Moore is not that good of a coordinator, and now I'm starting to wonder if Kellen Moore was the reason why Dak Prescott was looking bad on the Cowboys, because Dak Prescott has now looked like an MVP candidate without him, and Kellen Moore, as the offensive coordinator, has now caused Justin Herbert to play some of his worst football of his NFL career. Now granted, Justin Herbert is a great player, so he's still going to look really good, but by Justin Herbert's standards, he hasn't been nearly as good as what we expect him out to be, and I blame that on Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore has not done a good job getting the most out of this Chargers offense. This guy has no clue how to really scheme up open receivers in the system. His system is trash. They don't put players in positions to succeed, and now we see what the system looks like when Justin Herbert gets hurt. It's just filled with garbage all over the place. Play calls, garbage. Play designs, garbage. Personnel on the field in terms of knowing how to use them, garbage. Kellen Moore is not cut out to be a good offensive coordinator. The fact that the Chargers didn't even name him the interim head coach should tell you everything that you need to know about how they feel about Kellen Moore, because of the fact that if Kellen Moore was supposedly this next head coach available, they would have named him the interim head coach and then given him an interim trial to see how he would do, but they didn't even give him a chance. So that means obviously they're not going to go ahead and hire him because they don't value him highly. And talk about tanking your value down. You become a hotshot offensive coordinator on the Dallas Cowboys. You end up leaving the Cowboys. You go to the Los Angeles Chargers. You think you're going to boost up your resume by working with Justin Herbert, and instead you're forcing Justin Herbert to play some of his worst football, and now everybody's blaming you. Now you're not going to be a head coach next year on an NFL team, or at least he shouldn't be. If he is, then I have to question that ownership. Kellen Moore has not been good enough on the Los Angeles Chargers, and him not getting named the interim head coaching job over Giff Smith, that should tell you everything you need to know. Because who is Giff Smith? Apparently he is an outside linebackers coach for the Chargers. He's been with them since 2016. He's basically been a position coach basically his entire life. There's no shot Giff Smith is actually going to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, but the fact that they're naming him over Kellen Moore should tell you everything you need to say about Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore is just not cut out to be a head coach in the National Football League. In fact, at this point, I'm not even sure if he's cut out to be a good offensive coordinator in the National Football League. As far as what the Los Angeles Chargers didn't tell you about Brandon Staley, it's simple. He underachieved, and he was embarrassing them on a national stage against a team that had an interim head coach in Antonio Pierce. It was just an embarrassing blowout all around. How do you allow a team to score 63 points in an NFL game? Absolutely embarrassing. Brandon Staley needs to go back to Division III football, because he's not cut out to coach football at the NFL level. He's just not good enough whatsoever. So that is why I was very excited to see Brandon Staley get fired by the Chargers, as he was massively underachieving with the stacked roster. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video film, please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dustin Tran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.